Hi, peeps. You're listening to She's My Cherry Pie, the baking podcast from the Cherry Bombe Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jessie Sheehan. I'm a baker, recipe developer, and author of 4 baking books, including Snackable Bakes. In each episode, I hang out with some of the sweetest bakers around and take a deep dive into their signature bakes. My guest today is Spring Council. Spring is a chef, cooking instructor, former restaurateur, and the daughter of legendary Southern chef Mildred Mama Dip Council of Mama Dip's Kitchen in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Spring just released her debut cookbook, Southern Roots, Recipes and Stories from Mama Dip's Daughter, and she joins me to talk all about her childhood, learning to cook and bake at her mother's side, her family's history in the Chapel Hill culinary scene, and about how many of the recipes in her new book are grounded in the oral recipe sharing tradition. Then she walks me through her chocolate bread pudding with candied bacon. Yes, candied bacon. Spring tells me about how she grates the bread into crumbs for the pudding, almost creating a flour of sorts, and about how the addition of bourbon to the pudding, plus the bacon, really takes this pudding, which I, for one, will 100% be making, to the top. I loved chatting with Spring, so stay tuned for our conversation. You can find today's recipe at cherrybombe.substack.com. Cherry Bombe's new issue is here. It's called Mom's the Bombe and has 3 amazing covers featuring these dynamic mother-daughter duos. Chloe Crane LaRue and her mom Trudy, who are the co-authors of the cookbook, The Artful Way to Plant-Based Cooking. Sama Dada and her mom Shermeen. Sama is the founder of Dada Eats and a cookbook author. And food stylist and entertaining expert Romilly Newman and her mom Antonia, a casting director, screenwriter, and filmmaker. Chloe, Sama, and Romilly all share a deep bond with their moms who have influenced their culinary styles and careers. Don't miss their cover stories with original photography by Jennifer Livingston. This issue is also packed with delicious recipes, beautiful photos, and heartfelt essays. Head over to cherrybombe.com to subscribe now to guarantee your copy, or pick up a copy at your favorite local bookstore or culinary shop. Let's chat with today's guest. Spring! So excited to have you on She's My Cherry Pie and to chat bread, pudding with you, and so much more.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I'd love you to start us off by sharing an early baking memory, or it could be a baked good eating memory from your childhood.
Well, I remember Mrs. Annie Pearl McCladden. She actually baked this sweetbread in a cast iron stove on the side of her home. When she pulled that out, the aroma of it really caught my attention. But I asked her, Miss Annie Pearl, what is that? And she said, sweetbread, my sweetbread. So that's the greatest memory I can think of for that.
I love that. And what is a sweetbread? What did she mean exactly?
Well, sweetbread is actually almost like a muffin, but she made it in like a loaf pan. She made it in a cast iron skillet, but it's almost tastes just like a muffin with no fillings in it. It was very sweet and buttery and soft. It was delicious.
It sounds incredible. So you grew up the youngest of 8 in a family of cooks and family-run restaurants, and you write in your new fabulous book about so many delicious-sounding treats that you grew up eating in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, from candy to cake. And I was just going to go through a few of them that really caught my eye and my sweet tooth, as it were. I want to chat about cake with you for a second because there's mention of your mom's coconut cake with 7-minute frosting in the book and also of her birthday caramel cakes. Can you tell me about both of those?
Well, the birthday caramel cakes, Marcy Farris had talked about that. She used to order cakes from me and I used to bake those for her.
Oh, so that was your recipe?
Yes, And then the coconut cake with the 7-minute frosting, that was one of the recipes that my mom made. And she also made a recipe that I have in the book where she uses more of a creamier frosting than the 7-minute.
There's a cake that I have discussed on this podcast before. Maybe its origins are in North Carolina. I'm not positive. But it's a coconut cake where you literally cover it in almost like a sweetened sour cream coconut situation, then wrap it in plastic wrap, stick it in the refrigerator, and then all of that frosting kind of gets absorbed in the cake?
Yeah, it was similar. It stays on the top as the frosting in the cake, but putting it in the refrigerator help it to solidify and stay on the cake.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that sour cream frosting.
Oh
It's the same
my
one.
gosh.
Yes.
I don't know why I have not made that yet because I'm a huge coconut cake fan. I also happen to love 7-minute frosting. So when I saw that, I loved that. But I just love this idea of this sour cream frosting, like the tartness. All sounds so good. Another sort of early sweet memory of yours that I loved was, I think it was after church, and I think you would go with your sisters. You would go to Danziger's and get chocolate truffles. Can you tell us about Danziger's and those candies?
Yeah, Danziger's was just a fancy candy store that we would go to on Sundays after church in our Sunday dresses. And just going in there and seeing that glass case, and for the first time seeing that chocolate truffle and tasting it and biting into it and getting that caramel and crunch of pecans and that smooth chocolate on top. It was just heaven to me at that time. That's still one of my favorite candies is a chocolate turtle. And I did create a recipe based on that flavors with my chocolate cake in the book. It's a chocolate cake and I do a fudge caramel frosting. And I put the toasted pecans on top just to give it those same flavors, that chocolate truffle.
I'm with you. That's like literally one of my favorite candies.
Mm-hmm.
So good. I also love milk chocolate. I know not everyone does, but that's the other reason I love a turtle because usually it's milk chocolate.
Yes, that's my favorite too, milk
It
chocolate.
is.
Yeah.
And this was something that I had never heard of before, but you refer to your mom's homemade snow cream. What's snow cream?
Snow cream is you pretty much make ice cream out of snow. And so what you do is she only made it after the second fall of snow. So the first fall cleans the air. Second fall, you use that to make the snow cream. You add like confectionery milk and sugar and vanilla, and that's it. And you have some delicious snow cream.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Finally, one more. I think your mom had a special occasion dessert, which was banana cream pudding with like a French meringue.
Yes, she would do that on special occasions. We had banana pudding a lot, but on occasion she would put that French meringue on top and bake it up in the oven, put it on the broiler and just get that nice brown toasty coating on it. And so that was really delicious. And then in my book, I took a different take on it. I add chocolate to that meringue.
I love that because I do love chocolate and banana. Mm-hmm. What were the kind of special occasions that you might get the French meringue for? Like a holiday or like a birthday, or would she serve it in the restaurant?
Well, it was when I was a little kid, on Sunday afternoon, we had company coming, and she would do it for like a Thanksgiving or Christmas dessert. It was more like a holiday style dinner.
So good. I love banana pudding, but I also love like a soft meringue. And so the idea of the two of those together is like heaven. Plus your chocolate, even better. I also loved reading about this. Tell us about Thursday nights, which I think were Daddy's breakfast for dinner nights.
Yeah, that was really a surprise. My dad came home one day with those bags of groceries and just went in the kitchen and didn't say anything and just started cooking up.
Oh, my God.
And we sat in there watching our TV shows and just started smelling the aromas coming out of the kitchen and hearing the sounds. And then he told us to come on, dinner's ready. And to get there, so that country ham and those grits and those butter biscuits and the baked apples were just delicious. And it was one of my favorite days of the week to eat the meal. It was delicious.
And after that, was that like a tradition? Like every Thursday it was?
Yes, every Thursday we would make that breakfast for dinner for us.
Yeah, I don't know what my parents were thinking, but I grew up with no breakfast for, I don't even think I've ever had breakfast for dinner. But that just sounds, the baked apples, all of it. Oh my gosh. Sounds delicious. And then there was one savory snack that I loved learning about. You would go to the snack shack after you'd been at the pool in the pool house. Were you making this for yourself? It was like sardines and cider vinegar and saltines, or were they selling it? How did that work?
So you go to the store and then have like cans of sardines, and you get these like small packs of saltine crackers, probably about 5 or 6 crackers in a pack. And then you would just pretty much go home, get vinegar, open up your can, pour some vinegar on there, and just eat it with the crackers and the sardine with a fork. And it was the most tastiest thing ever.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Peeps, did you hear the news? Jubilee New York 2026 is happening on Saturday, April 25th at the Glass House in Manhattan, and tickets are on sale now. Jubilee is Cherry Bomb's annual conference celebrating women and creatives in the world of food and drink. It'll be a beautiful day of connection and community, plus delicious bites and sips. You'll meet other thoughtful food folks and be inspired by the featured speakers, panelists, and more. I had such a great time at last year's event, and I know this year's will somehow be bigger and better. Tickets are on sale now at cherrybombe.com. If you're an official Bomb Squad member or a paid Substack subscriber, be sure to use your discount code at checkout. You can find it in your inbox or on our Substack website. Head to cherrybombe.com for all the details. I hope to see you there. Now back to our guest. I want to talk about your remarkable mother, Mildred, Mama Dip's counsel. Tell us about how Mama Dip actually started cooking for her own family, her mom and dad and siblings, when she was only 9 years old, or at least that was the first time.
Yes, so my Aunt Bernice, her sister, and a family friend, Roland, normally did the cooking. And my mother was responsible for bringing the wood to make the fire, keep the fire going. And so during those times, she really, loved watching them and tasting food and just seeing the aromas in the kitchen. And then she actually wanted to cook. Her father told her, she'll turn to cook at 9 years old. And she grew up on a tenant farm. And so most people was out in the field and she was cooking the meal for the people after work and for the family. And she went in there and she really loved it. At one point, she went in and got an egg from the guinea hen, which her father told her not to never mess with the guinea hens, but she made an egg custard with that. So that's how she started off at 9 years old, going into the kitchen and cooking on a wood stove.
That's incredible. And sounds like cooking for a lot of people, not like three people, but 10? More than 10?
Yes. It was 7 of them all together. She had 6 siblings and her father and other folks that was working.
Yeah, that's incredible. And do you think she loved it right away? Did it feel like a chore or it felt like, oh, this is my happy place?
That was a happy place. She was just so excited. She said that she got the opportunity to cook that day.
That's incredible. You talked about dump cooking, which I think is also sort of related to the oral recipe sharing. Maybe define dump cooking for us, which is related to the way your mom cooked, and then also oral recipe sharing.
So dump cooking is you're cooking without measuring utensils. So if you're making some collard greens, you just put your greens in the pot and you throw some, your fat in there if you want, and then your salt. And rather than measure, then you sort of tasting along as you're cooking the meal. And then with the oral recipe sharing, is seeing that happen. You're seeing the sight, sound, smells, and the taste of the food during that whole process from the raw ingredients to the finished dish. And so within that, we would be in the kitchen with Mama, with our elbows on the table, just watching her cook and sometimes helping her out. So she was making, like a stewed beef, we'll watch her cut the meat, saute it in the pan, add the onions and pour the water in there, create that broth. And we could just smell and taste that during that process. And so if that oral recipe sharing wasn't about this is what you put in here, this is what you put in there, this is amount, it's about watching and tasting and learning through your senses.
So she wasn't really talking it through with you guys. She was kind of doing her own thing and you guys were just watching her and smelling and tasting. Did she want you to be there because she wanted to try to teach you what she was doing? Or was it more like those of you that were interested came in the kitchen, put your elbows on the table, those of you that weren't in the kitchen?
Right, yes. We were in the kitchen. It was like curiosity while we went in there. And especially during the holiday, we were just so excited to go in the kitchen, just watch Mama prepare the meals. And then when it came to the cakes, we could crack an egg. We would lick the bowl after the batter had been removed from the cake pan, from the cake bowl. And so it was like a special time for us to be there with her. She wanted us there. We wanted to be there.
Yeah, but she didn't want you there because she wanted you to help her necessarily. She just wanted you around and she was kind of teaching you by osmosis.
That's correct,
yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I'm glad you brought up cakes because there's this whole beautiful part of your book when you're talking about oral recipe sharing. You tell us about, she taught you so much about food and cooking, and you tell us about Mama's cakes and how basically you learned just what you said by sort of watching and helping her. And I just loved how you kind of went through all these steps of how she made a cake. Like she'd grab her hand mixer and she'd begin to mix in like her big white Pyrex bowl. And it was sort of your job to sort of hold the bowl for her because before the ingredients like the butter and sugar were creamed together, the bowl was kind of bouncing around. And you guys would put your little hands on the bowl and keep it steady for her. And then just what you said, or maybe you were watching her, maybe she would allow you to help, but you'd see how she like beat in the egg after she added each one. Incredible. You guys were sort of tracking all that. And I also think when kids are little, young kids can learn a second language better than they can by the time they're my age. I wonder if it's the same kind of thing, being taught these recipes from look and feel made them really sink into your mind in a way that it wouldn't if somebody was trying to teach me by look and feel.
Right. Yeah. It was like being in that space with her and seeing that because it was the whole process of, the fact that, okay, we got to hold this bowl really tight because it was just wobbling so much from that pressure trying to cream that butter and sugar. That really captured our attention. And then adding and then being able to crack an egg and put it into the bowl and watching as she beat the egg into that and then tell us, go ahead and add another egg. That sort of connection and experience really stick to your mind in that way.
Then maybe she would sift in the flour. And I thought this was interesting. Would she have ever used cake flour or would it have been all-purpose flour? Because usually when I think of sifting flour, I think of sifting cake flour because it can be so clumpy. She probably would have been using regular flour.
Yeah, she used all-purpose flour.
Yep.
All-purpose flour, baking powder, and then, salt, just basically 1, 2, 3 yellow cake mix.
And then I love all the signals for the readiness of the cake. Now we're so dependent on timers, et cetera. You're smelling the cake to know when it's ready. And then she would touch the cake, and if no fingerprint was left when she lightly pressed it, then it was good to go and she could pull it.
Yes, when it sprang back to touch, she was ready to go. So, it was all about those touching, feeling, and smelling sounds, yes. And
then I feel like the most important lesson you learned is that you could eat the frosting from the bowl once the cake was frosted.
Yeah, that was the fun part. That might have been one of the reasons we were in the kitchen
in the first place. Right. And would the frosting have been like an American buttercream, sort of like confectioner's sugar and butter, or?
Yeah, it would be just basically American buttercream. Sugar, butter, vanilla, milk.
Yep. So before your mom opened her own restaurant, your grandfather had opened this place called Bill's Barbecue, which was actually opened the year you were born. And your mom was the menu developer, which I loved. Was that sort of like her first job in food, as it were?
Well, as far as in the sense of developing a menu for a restaurant, it was. She had worked previous for the Thurman Ackness, who had a cab stand. They also had a little cafe next to the cab stand. She worked there for a while, but she worked as a waitress.
Yeah.
And of course, she cooked in people's homes. She was a maid and cooked there.
Yeah.
As far as a business, helping my grandfather figure that piece out was her first opportunity to do that.
That's so cool. So literally, she went in there, came up with the menu, perfected the dishes, maybe had to teach the other people in the kitchen her way of doing things. Because would recipes have been written down for the other people at Bill's to follow?
It wouldn't have. No recipe was written down. She would just go in and just start, cooking, showing people about oral tradition, how to cook, when the chicken's going to be ready, how long, figuring out, even when the restaurant at Mama Dips, we were cooking fried chicken, we didn't have a timer. Yeah. Even we cooking chicken for 50 people, we would put the chicken down. We knew that in 10 or 15 minutes of the color of the crust, that it was ready. And we also knew that if your chicken was just, not chicken, but if your oil was just put in that day, fresh oil, it's going to have a different color than if your oil been there for 2 days. We could see all that balance in cooking.
Tell us about Fish Fridays at Bill's.
A Fish Friday, she would get fish from the coast. He would fry the flounder. He would score it with 3 different lines and then cook it whole, of course, without the head. And then the porgies and the black bass and the trout, he was taking butterfly that and caramel coat them and deep fry them, which is really good. And we pretty much put it between 2 slices of light bread, which is white bread. We called it light bread back in the day. That's what you just had that piece of light bread, using it as a utensil to eat your piece of fish.
Oh my gosh.
And it's something now even when we're growing up in the kitchen, when we had fish on Friday, Mama just put the fish in the middle of the table, put some white bread in the middle of the table, and the instruction was, if you get a piece of bone in your throat, you eat a piece of white bread, and it's going to take it on down. So,
Brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Will you tell us about the grilled honey buns with the vanilla ice cream?
Yeah, that was good. Just a simple, open up a pack of honey buns, put a little butter on the flat iron grill, and just grill it up a little bit. Not so much it's going to remove the sugar, and then put it on a plate with a scoop of vanilla ice cream, and that sugar would crust up a little bit, get a little caramelness to it. And it was just absolutely delicious. That vanilla ice cream with that was just awesome.
It sounds almost like an ice cream sandwich in the best way. Should the buns I picture almost be like a hamburger bun, but sweetened? Like kind of a white roll?
No, actually, you know what honey bun?
I don't think I do.
It's a package. Yeah, it's a package, old package dish. It's actually like a cinnamon bun. But
Oh, yum.
But we call it a honey bun because I think you're supposed to put honey on it instead of sugar, but it was sugar.
Oh, yum.
And that's what it was. Came in little packets.
I love that.
You could eat.
And also, just because I love hamburgers so much, Bill's Big Burger. Oh, my gosh. Your recipe is kind of similar to that?
Yeah, she had a Bill's Big Burger, which was on this big oversized bun with $1,000 dressing on it. But my burger is the Carolina burger. We call it chili cheeseburger back then, but now they call it Carolina burger.
Yeah.
Served like homemade chili, lettuce, tomatoes, and cheese, and a burger, which is really good.
I think it was your first job in food was at Bill's. You were the box assembler?
Yes.
How old were you? And tell us about being a box assembler.
So I guess I probably started around when I was like 7 or 8 years old. He had a room, separate room for all his box assemblies. And we would go in there, put on the long string of light and see what was on the table. And we said, then we just make boxes, me and my siblings, mostly me and my sisters, and make the boxes, stack them on the table. And at the end, we get a fried chicken sandwich, and then we get like $1 or something for how many boxes we made, like a penny a box. So we used that money to go swimming.
Yep.
And then we would come back after the swim, and then we would, get our chicken sandwich for our lunch.
Oh, my gosh.
So that was a really good time.
That sounds like a good deal to me. I'll assemble some boxes for one of Bill's chicken sandwiches. The impression I got from reading the book, you loved working in restaurants, being around food in your family, but you were also in high school in the library reading The Home and the Garden and the fashion magazines and super interested in home entertaining as well.
Yes, I was. And I got that from the women in our community, from my grandmother and the church women having their tea parties and entertaining. And they're entertaining for a purpose to figure out how they're going to help the people in the community from the Ladies Auxiliary Club. And so I really liked going to my grandmother's house when I knew she was going to have a party. And I just go in there, I just stand there, I just look at the table, and I was just so in awe at that table. And then now I just want to create that same atmosphere of quiet and peace and just having people around your table to just enjoy a good time.
Were you the only one of your siblings who was interested in that? Or were others of your sisters or your brothers? Was anyone else oh my gosh, will you look at that beautiful table? Or was it more your thing?
I think it was pretty much more my thing, because usually when I went to my grandmother to take a look at her table, I usually was by myself. I was alone. My sisters didn't come with me. Yeah, they get an opportunity to go with another lady in the community who gave tea parties. And so we really enjoyed that. So it was definitely interesting in going to the tea parties and see the pretty things that were set for that. But my sisters do enjoy sitting at the table. They set a beautiful table in their homes today.
Also, when you were sitting in that library, were you also looking at food magazines? Or it's like you lived around food all the time, so it was more looking at pretty tables, et cetera, that you wanted to see?
Yeah, I was looking more at the pretty tables. I always dreamt of having a party. Back in the day, I want to have a party. I want to invite people to my home. Put on a pretty dress like the ladies had in the magazines and just set my table and serve some delicious food. That was a dream.
I love that. So your mom divorced your dad in 1976 when you graduated from high school, and that's when she started Mama Dips with, $64 in her pocket and, as you write, a lifetime of kitchen wisdom. And you actually left your dad, who was in the restaurant business as well, to join your mom. The restaurant became one of Chapel Hill's most beloved and a North Carolina institution. At Mama Dips, you were a waitress, I think, at first. You did have all these other ideas maybe from those magazines, and you thought about pursuing fashion and design. Is that sort of where your head was at when you first graduated high school and were working there?
Yeah, I really wanted to, go into fashion, be a fashion buyer. I wanted to go into the fashion industry because I did like that, just looking at all those magazines and everything. But then I went, start working with my mother after I left Bill's. And I'm glad I did, because the experience I've had there has just been so wonderful, and what I've learned and it's been just great. And so working there with her was a life-changing experience for me. She said her life changed there, and mine did also.
Oh,
yeah. And it took into the simple moments. I remember I had to wait on a table of 8 people, and I felt like I was being a public speaker, and I was like, oh my God, I got to talk to 8 people at one time. And then over the years, I sort of got used to it. So it was a great learning experience.
Yeah. I loved when I was, reading about the, different moments when you were working for your mom, with this idea of fashion and design and tablescapes, your head was in a slightly different place than just food. I loved reading that for a while you sort of took over making the pies at Mama Dips because it allowed you to embrace your creativity and do something really special with the way they looked.
Yeah, I was started cripping a rough on the dress. I talk about that in the book, and just trying to be perfection and what my plate was going to look like once it went out into the customer. So that's why I could be creative in that sense. I remember one time my sister asked me to make this plate at the restaurant. She's like, "You going to eat that, or you going to take a picture of it?" I said, "I'm going to eat it." So, you eat with sight first, and then you sort of indulge. But
yeah. I loved reading that sort of when you were a short order cook, like you'd put your food stylist hat on and make the food look super beautiful. You were like Instagram savvy before your time or before Instagram's time. During this time, I also read that you were starting to watch some cooking shows and read more food magazines, sort of teaching yourself a little bit more. Is that right?
Yes, I did. I used to watch a lot of Emerald's show. He was really good. I loved his show. And it came in handy because my mother had to do a TV cooking show for UNC TV. They had a fundraiser. And she asked me to go with her for this. And so I had to get my everything together on these different trays. And I said, okay, I remember what Emma would do. He would put all this stuff ready. And so when the TV segment came, he had it right there. So watching those shows, gave me the know-how to help my mom when she was doing a cooking show.
I love that.
So
I love
really
that.
good.
Yeah, I read that eventually you were her assistant, helped her with her cookbook tours, TV appearances. You ended up being an owner and product manager of Mama Dips. What kind of products were they?
With the barbecue sauces, we had like a vinegar-based, and then we had a tomato-based barbecue sauce. And we had a poppy seed dressing, and then a cornbread mix and pancake mix. Of course, her cookbooks, Mama Dip's Kitchen Cookbook and a Mama Dip's Family Cookbook.
Yeah.
And we were sending out pecan pies too before we closed the restaurant.
Yeah. And now today, can you tell us a little bit about your in-home cooking classes and your curated tablescapes and seasonal Spoon Society cooking parties?
Yeah, so if someone wants to learn how to pretty much cook, do home cooking, I would come into their homes and pretty much show them based on what their needs are. If they want to pretty much just learn some Southern dishes, we can do that. If they want to learn how to set a beautiful table and help them sort of create that space based on what their style is and how they want to entertain. And then Seasonal Spoon Society is just about sort of bringing people together who just love cooking and then showing them how to do that.
All right, now I want to talk about Southern Roots Cookbook. Can you tell us about the book and sort of what one sees when they open it up for the first time?
We're going to talk about my mother and the experience I had in her kitchen, which was really important to me. And not only that, I just wanted to call her name because what she's given to me and given to my family and given to the community in Chapel Hill. And so looking at me spending time in her kitchens and the experiences I had there, and also the experience I had in Mama Dip's restaurant. And in the restaurant, she taught us to build community within our food space and to treat people like they were family. And she didn't actually say that. This is what she did, and we sort of emulated what she did. We worked so much anyway. We worked like 6 days a week, sometimes split shifts. So when people came into the restaurant, we got a taste of the outside world. So we could sort of, they could be our friends. We could talk to them, not only wait on them, but have a conversation with them, hold their babies or whatever. So it's a community thing. So she taught me that. And so that's in the book as well, that sense of community and how she built community in that restaurant space. And also talking about the history of her, how she came about, loving what she's doing, and even telling the story about me sitting in the chair at one particular time and thinking that nobody's coming to the restaurant so much. And no one knows that Mama's cooking this great food inside. And when they find out about it by a newspaper article, then that's when things changed. And looking at that, realizing that what she was doing was important. My thing was just about the food. It was good, but it was more than that. It was about she was building community. So with the farmers, with the customers, and with the people in the community that had needs. I had this man come in to the restaurant one day. He said, is Dip here? And I said, no, she's not here. And he said, I'm hungry, and I said, okay. And so I just went and got him a plate, and fed him a plate. He ate his plate and he left because he knew that if he came into my mom's space and he was hungry, he could be fed and not worry about it.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of community she built, the Chapel Hill.
Was she also as interested, sort of as you became, in sort of beautiful tablescapes and tea parties and making things really beautiful, or was she more focused on just making super delicious food?
She likes to, make things beautiful for a restaurant. She went and got some custom curtains made for the dining room. For the restaurant business, you don't get too fancy with what she was doing. She was doing the traditional country cooking. But at home, she had china sets. And at Christmas, we would set the tables with china, napkins, cloth napkins.
Yeah.
And she had sterling silver flatware. I have her sterling silver set. And, she brought her crystal glasses. So, during the holidays, she set a beautiful table.
Oh, so it's like there are these treasured heirloom recipes in the book. There are these beautiful personal stories, which I kind of mined to chat about today. You write that it's celebrating 4 generations of Black restaurateurs and the recipes, just like you said, that nourished a community. Was it always a dream to write a cookbook?
For me, it was not a dream to write a cookbook. It was just like, my mother wrote 2 cookbooks. I started out wanting to write a book on entertaining, and it didn't work out for me. And I realized in hindsight that it's because I was telling people how to do it, not the why. There was no story behind it. And so once I decided to write the book or the cookbook, I could use the recipes that I had for this entertaining book and sort of pull them over here, look at it, and then, okay, what story is behind this particular recipe? And so those memories start coming back. But just seeing what my mother did all these years, you still want to okay, she did this, so I can do that too. It's like, let's keep the things flowing and keep our legacy growing in that way.
Yeah. No, I love that. I'm sure she'd be so proud. Spring wrote a cookbook. Well, and it's such a gorgeous book. I want to make literally everything in it, but I especially want to make the chocolate bread pudding with candied bacon. I love that you write that this recipe is about 3 different pairings that this recipe brings together. Can you tell us about the pairings?
Yes, so bourbon is the main pairing thing. You got bourbon and chocolate, which is so good. You have bourbon and bacon, which is good, and then bourbon and maple syrup. So all those pair really well together. And so putting all that together in this custard and this bread, it's just a wonderful flavor. And then once you make it, and then the candied bacon and the saltiness of that really brings out the flavors. And when you cut into it, you're going to see 3 different layers in that. So it's just absolutely delicious. And I'm not just saying that because I made it.
I believe you. I believe you. You call it a not-so-classic Southern bread pudding. What makes it not so classic? The addition of the bacon?
Addition of the candied bacon and the bourbon. And then when my mom made the bread pudding, she used biscuit cubes, and I used grated bread. And so it's going to give it a different texture than, you're not going to get a big bite of bread. You're going to just get, this texture of bread rather than it.
We're going to talk obviously more about each stage of the recipe, but I was wondering about that because you call them crumbs. So when your mom would make it, would she use, usually with a bread pudding kind of thing, we want to use slightly stale bread. Would she use a day-old biscuit to make her bread pudding? Is that what you were saying?
Yes. Day-old biscuits. At the restaurant, we serve biscuits every day.
Yeah.
And sometimes people won't eat out, so we had bread left. So we just cut it up into chunks.
Yep.
And we use that for the bread pudding. And then we also have the biscuit crumbs as well.
Yep.
We use a biscuit crumb to cover like a casserole.
Yep.
And so we always had biscuit crumbs in the freezer. So today I keep a lot of biscuit crumbs in my freezer.
I love
and
that.
So if I need it for something,
For this recipe, you're grating the bread. Talk to me about that. So it has to be stale enough that you can grate it.
Well, if you got biscuits is gonna grate whether it's
I see. So you
either way because it's soft.
Of course.
And then you use focaccia, if you want to use that, you just grate that easily. The only thing that's going to really be hard if you try to do a French bread. So bread soft enough to grate, not a traditional white bread, something that's going to be like a baked loaf.
Amazing. So you can sort of use anything you want here as long as it's, kind of hard enough, like you said, like a biscuit or focaccia, that you could grate it.
Yes.
Now I guess I understand the inclusion of the baking powder. Because I bet that grated crumb is almost like a flour of sorts that will kind of rise.
Yes, it did. It rises to the top with the chocolate in it. Yes.
Oh, my gosh, Spring. Yum. I mean, I kind of understood that, but I was a little uncertain about this idea of the grated bread. Love. Did you guys grow up eating bread pudding, or was it something that Mama Dip served at the restaurant, or both?
It's something she served at the restaurant. We didn't have any business laying around when I was a kid. We ate up everything.
Yep. I love that. Bread pudding is literally one of my favorite things, but I don't think I've ever made it with biscuits, and I love that idea. Okay, so first we're going to make the candied bacon because we're going to set that aside so we can sprinkle it over the bread pudding when we finish the bread pudding. So we're going to heat the oven to 375 degrees. We're going to line a rimmed cookie sheet with aluminum foil, and then we'll set a cooling rack on top of that foil. In a bowl. And do you have a favorite bowl? I know Mama Dip used to use these white Pyrexes. Do you have a favorite kind of mixing bowl at home?
I have so many. It's just, I have like maybe 4 sets of mixing bowls.
Yeah.
Like a ceramic bowl.
Yeah.
I have those sets.
Nice.
I usually use that kind.
Yep.
Yeah.
So in a bowl, we're going to mix together brown sugar. And is it light or dark brown sugar? Or does it not matter?
It's light brown sugar.
Light brown sugar. We're going to mix together light brown sugar, some pepper. Is it freshly ground pepper? Do we want it to be like coarse, or do we want it to be super fine?
Ground pepper is not, it's just ground it up.
Yep, perfect. And we're going to mix together the sugar and the pepper kind of with like a whisk or a spoon or really a fork.
With a spoon.
With a spoon.
Spoon or fork, yes.
And then we're going to brush both sides of our bacon strips with maple syrup. And we're going to arrange those strips on our prepared cooling rack, which is sitting inside of the baking sheet. And then we're going to sprinkle that sugar pepper mixture evenly over the top side of the bacon that has the maple syrup on it. Then we're going to bake for like 15 or 20 minutes or until it's done. Do you like it to be pretty crisp, not super fatty?
Right, yeah, I like it crisp. Make sure all that fat is done.
Then we're going to cool the bacon, cut it into small pieces, and then we'll set that aside for sprinkling over the pudding. I just love that recipe by itself. I mean, do you ever just eat bacon that way and not even put it on a bread pudding?
I do. Yeah, I love candied bacon.
That sounds so good to me. To make the bread pudding, we're going to lower the heat to 350. In a large bowl, we're going to mix together the breadcrumbs, which now we understand probably came from a focaccia or from a biscuit. So will you literally like grate it on a box grater?
Yes. Yeah. You can put it in your food processor.
Or food processor too. Yep. And the size of the crumb we're looking for is like the size of a pea?
So I guess that's good, yeah.
Yep. So kind of grating till it's like the size of a pea. We're also mixing some granulated sugar and some cocoa powder. And do you want the cocoa powder to be natural or Dutch processed, or does it not matter?
It doesn't matter. I use pretty much just Dutch cocoa powder.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I usually use.
I love the Dutch because of that bright color, and I also love the flavor. And some baking powder. And now I understand the baking powder, because since the bread part is almost like a flour, it's actually going to lighten everything. Would your mom have done that too, added the baking powder?
No baking powder in her bread pudding.
I love that inclusion.
Because what happens, the bread sort of float to the top of it without the bread,
right?
The baking powder.
And also because she's using bigger pieces, so she's not going to use the baking powder. Yeah. Right. Did you come up with this idea of grating the bread, or was that something you'd seen before?
I just decided let me just grate it up, try something different, you know, in that sense. And I was like, let me just add this here, see what happens, you know, and it turned out really good.
Yeah, such a great idea. I can't wait to try it. We have our bowl. We're mixing together the breadcrumbs, the Dutch processed cocoa, granulated sugar, baking powder, just like a wooden spoon to mix everything together at this point?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then in another bowl, we're going to whisk together the wet ingredients. So we're going to whisk together milk. Is it whole?
Whole milk.
Whole milk. We're going to add some beaten eggs. We're going to add some unsalted melted butter. We're going to add some bourbon. Now, is there a favorite brand of bourbon that you love?
I like Jack Daniel bourbon.
Yeah.
I like Uncle Nearest bourbon. Yeah. It's good. Yeah.
Yum. And then we're going to add some vanilla. Is there a favorite kind of vanilla that you like?
Madagascar vanilla.
Yep.
It's good.
So good.
Yes.
So good. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to whisk all of that together. And then we're going to stir, maybe with our same wooden spoon, we'll stir that milk mixture and the chocolate chips into the breadcrumb mixture. And do you have brand of chocolate chips that you like? And do you like semi-sweet or bittersweet? Or you and I both love milk chocolate, although that might be too sweet here.
Yeah, I like the semi-sweet, yes. And I like grated chocolate.
Yep.
I like the chocolate pure. It gives a much richer flavor to everything.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. Mm-hmm. Then we're going to pour the pudding, which is now the bread and the milk mixture and the chocolate chips, into a buttered 1-quart casserole dish. And do you have like a favorite one that you use at home, or you just grab whatever you have?
Pretty much what I have. With this one, with the recipe I had, this like French, like deep bowl that I use. But I have all kinds of sizes. Whatever I find at a thrift shop, that's what I have.
Love. And then we're going to bake the pudding for 50 to 60 minutes or until a super sharp knife, like a paring knife kind of thing. Is that what we're going to test with?
Yes, some with a very thin point to it.
Yeah, like a paring knife. We're going to insert that into the center of the cake until it comes out clean.
Yes.
And then, I just can't wait to make this. And then we're going to serve, I hope, very large slices of it or portions of it with vanilla ice cream.
Yes.
So delicious. And then when would you typically serve a bread pudding? Like, would it be dessert for dinner? Would it be like lunchtime? Would it almost be like a brunch meal?
This particular pudding could go either way. It just depends on what else is going to be on the menu.
Yeah.
Whether some are going to be heavy or some are going to be light. I would serve this more of a light if I serve like a seafood dish or fish dish or chicken dish, then I would serve this heavier like bread pudding with the chocolate in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think in the book, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at the end of the book, you sort of have some different menu ideas, like taking different dishes from the book and putting them together for different moments where you could serve everything together.
Yes. I have like the Juneteenth menu,
the
Thanksgiving menu, afternoon tea, and then a brunch and breakfast menu. So yeah, I think I have like maybe 8 menus.
Yeah, it's really great. I feel like that's such a nice way for people to understand sort of how all of the different dishes can come together. Yeah,
yes,
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Spring. And I just want to say that you are my cherry pie.
Oh, thank you so much. And you're my cherry pie too, I can say.
That's it for today's show. Don't forget to follow She's My Cherry Pie on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And tell your pals about us. You can find today's recipe at cherrybombe.substack.com. She's My Cherry Pie is a production of the Cherry Bombe Podcast Network. Our producers are Carrie Diamond, Catherine Baker, and Jenna Sadu. Thank you so much for listening to She's My Cherry Pie, and happy baking!